fourth industrial revolution is, it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing,
right.
Just as an example, it's you who are changed.
Yeah.
And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
Yeah. And offers certain kinds of possibilities that have to be careful about. You know, when you began to do that kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human.
That's the problem. And of course, the new industrial revolution offers us many opportunities, but it raises manifold questions on the ethical, but even legal implications. And we have to be prepared for it, and that's what we want to do in Davos next year.
Talk about technology and how the ways it can be deployed, that contribute to growth rather than exacerbate unemployment. How will that implement itself?
It's a big question mark, because there is a fear that technology, robots, just to take one
you gain
element,
productivity from machines.
Exactly, and it replaces maybe the workforce or jobs faster than we can replace them with new jobs. Not everybody can be a robot polisher and so on, so there will be new jobs.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Okay. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income.
There is certainly a danger of income inequality.
Why? Artificial intelligence, why? Because it
What is the amount of jobs it's going to take away and so on.
And that's coming. You think that's going to happen?
There's no question it will. So we've got to come up with ways of, creating new jobs. But I think a basic minimum earnings for everybody, so that there's nobody that is having to sleep on the street.
So guaranteed basic income or universal basic income.
100%.
But when you have a lose-lose situation, like with climate change, it's much more difficult without some overarching authority, real authority. Now, how to get there and how would it look like, I don't know. And certainly there is no obvious reason to think that it would look like Denmark or that it would be a democracy. Most likely it wouldn't. We don't have workable democratic models for a global government. So maybe it would look more like ancient China than like modern Denmark. But still, given the dangers that we are facing, I think the imperative of having some kind of real ability to force through difficult decisions on the global level is more important than almost anything else.
This is a mind right here that thinks pretty much like no one else on the planet, I would hasten to say. I'm serious. What are humans for?
As far as we know, for nothing. I mean, there is no great cosmic drama, some great cosmic plan that we have a role to play in it. And we just need to discover what our role is and then play it to the best of our ability. This has been the story of all religions and ideologies and so forth, but as a scientist, the best I can say, this is not true. There is no universal drama with a role in it for Homo sapiens.
And here's the follow-up, which I think is being published in the US next week.
Yeah, next week.
Homo Deus. Now this is the history of the next 100 years.
I mean, there is nothing that, Joseph Goebbels didn't know about all this idea of fake news and post-truth. He famously said that if you repeat a lie often enough, people will think it's the truth, and the bigger the lie, the better. Because people won't even think that something so big can be a lie. And I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible.
But there is
one option that some people talk about is that only a catastrophe can shake humankind and open the path to a real system of global governance. And they say that we can't do it before the catastrophe, but we need to start laying the foundations so that when the disaster strike, we can react quickly. But people will just not have the motivation to do such a thing before the disaster strikes. So the next step is we turn our gaze inwards and we say, okay, gaining control of the world outside us did not really make us satisfied. Let's now try to gain control of the world inside us. This is the big, really big project of science and technology and industry in the 21st century will be to try and gain control of the world inside us, to learn how to engineer and produce bodies and brains and minds. These are likely to be the main products of the 21st century economy.
We have Neuralinks working well in monkeys, and we're also doing just a lot of testing and just confirming that it's very safe and reliable, and that the Neuralink device can be removed safely. People may have seen the demo that we published earlier this year, the video of a monkey playing the video game Pong telepathically using the Neuralink in its brain, and it's completely wireless, charges inductively. But basically, the monkey looks completely normal, and yet is playing a video game telepathically, which is, I think, quite profound. We will have. We hope to have this in our first humans, which will be people that have severe spinal cord injuries, like tetraplegics, quadriplegics, next year, pending FDA approval. And I should say our standards for implanting the device are substantially higher than what the FDA requires, just as our standards for safety with Tesla are much higher than what the U.S. government requires. And I'll take a little more than 60 seconds.
Yes, I'm about to cut you off.
Because I think there's something that's I think pretty cool, and I do want to say that I'm very, emphasis on cautiously optimistic about this. I think we have a chance with Neuralink of being able to restore full body functionality to someone who has a spinal cord injury. Meaning, I think we have a chance, I emphasize a chance, of being able to allow someone who cannot walk or use their arms to be able to walk again.
Rick's muted.
What happens. It's a little rusty.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat. I had a good intro and everything, but take a couple weeks off. I got to get back on the bike. Welcome to the latest episode of News from the Pew. I am How dare you? And now your unmuted host, Rick Barrett, and I gathered 3 of the guys in line returning their Easter Bunny costumes to bring you the best insight in to the news that is happening right now. Of course, we may backtrack because we missed last week, but we're going to welcome them. We have Steve Cunningham from Senseis Fidelis. We have our good friend Jonathan Anderson down there taking care of Florida. We definitely have stuff to talk about with you in regard to what's going on with them. And then we are honored to be joined by world-renowned hip-hop artist Fwaz. And I know I say it, I actually hope you have gone out and purchased or downloaded or do whatever magical thing you can do to get his album Traditionis, which dropped last week. And I'll tell you, honestly, I've been listening to it every single day. So it's fantastic. So we're very happy. In fact, we had to cancel last week because Fwaz was on like a mini world tour. So we had to kind of postpone all that. But that's all great success. We're very happy for Fwaz's success. And that's excellent as well. So we are here and we are going to have a good time with you guys as we discuss a bunch of stories. Some are more interesting than others, in the scare factor. We're not trying to scare you, but just bringing you up to speed. The first one, I guess we're going to have to talk about it, is Elon Musk purchasing Twitter for $44 billion, which apparently made Father James Martin very upset because he wanted to, because apparently everybody subscribes to the math thing that like, oh, you could have given everybody like $5 billion and had, no, it doesn't work like that. You just can't give people anyway. We heard a lot of those arguments as well. Or Father James Martin wanted him to give all $44 billion to the poor, or whatever the case may be. Not really important here or there. But now that we have Elon supposedly taking over Twitter and freeing, I don't know who. I guess he's Moses of the cyber Moses, because he's letting people go. It's just really confusing. So our order this week: John won 2 weeks ago from in the cry room, and then Fawaz and Steve tied. And last time I gave it to Fawaz, so I'm going to give it to Steve. So our order is going to be John, Steve, and Fawaz as we go through this. So John, I'm going to throw it right to you. Your initial impressions of Elon Musk buying Twitter. Do you care? Is it a big deal for free speech? Is Musk our cyber Moses?
All right, let me go in reverse order. Definitely not our cyber Moses. But I'm to kind of borrow his stuttering approach to that one video that Steve had on in there. I'm cautiously optimistic that this is more than just controlled opposition. And I don't know, the way I've come to this opinion is that he was born into wealth. He should know how to keep wealth. So I know that most of the folks on our side know that his history is, somewhat sordid. His family life, kind of crazy, stuff like that. So there's a lot of warning signs. But, kind of like that Lord Acton quote that gets thrown around a lot, how absolute power can corrupt absolutely. That's a decent phrase to use every once in a while, but our Lord can work with human actors in all kinds of different ways, and can use even as you see in sacred scripture, like with the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, you name it, like basically all the peoples mentioned in Daniel's prophecy. God can work with pagan actors and allow them to cooperate with his plans for the good, as St. Paul says in the letter to the Romans. All that to kind of a long-winded way of saying I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe this is some sort of kink in the plans, because at the very least, some of the worst actors see this as opposition, and it's hard to imagine that these people are smart enough to all collaborate on this kind of crying orgy of sorts, where they all mourn together and wail. So I don't know. My thought's just that he's not the moral leader we need. I don't even think his ideas about free speech align with the better things that have been said throughout the Catholic Church's history about a certain liberty in pursuing the truth. But obviously, the modern concept of free speech by the libertarians is not the Catholic approach to the printed word or the spoken word. So there's some problems there. But overall, is it going to open up some doors that would not have been open before he did the purchase of Twitter, for folks who have the truth to get it out there, the truth in various things, like spiritual matters, you name it, political matters. I'm cautiously optimistic that some good could come out of this, and that it's not simply controlled opposition. That's my little cautiously optimistic approach to it.
Excellent. So, Steve, in regards to Elon, the idea that he is a free speech absolutist, which there's a couple phrases when I hear in discourse that just make my skin crawl. Free speech absolutist is one, fiscally conservative and socially liberal is the other. And then there's a couple other as well. But this idea that he is going to restore free speech to this platform, does that give you hope for that? Is it a bait and switch? Is it a way to distract? What's the deal? What is your focus, or what is your response when you hear people celebrating Musk buying Twitter?
Let me tell you something, Mean Gene. It's the greatest thing in the world right here. Woo! No, okay, I had to get that out of my system. Jonathan, I think is I'll piggyback on what he just said. Cautiously optimistic. He is a transhumanist. He does want to chip people's brains. Now, he did say that he's looking forward to doing it to help people, walk, arms move, things like that. And I've listened to the WEF videos on that, which he's a WEF guy, and they talk about being able to. I think his group is called Neuralink or something like that. He did a Rogan podcast a year ago that a bed would know when you were falling, and that when you're in the act of falling, that bed would fling to you to catch you before he hits the ground. This
Like
is
a magic
literally the
carpet?
last podcast of the year. Last year on the WF podcast, Great Reset. Now it's both merged together. So there's good. Tech is good. Technology is good. It's not an evil thing. It's not moral, pro or con. But if it's used for like what these guys are doing, like Harari, what he talked about getting inside our heads. The official video for the reset, minute 2:30, I think it is, gets into the last, the lady goes, the last realm that we have to of not control is thoughts. We need to control people's thoughts and minds. Now, if you want to be able to tweet at the speed of thought, good on you, I guess. I look at this as going, okay, great. I could care less about Twitter being free or not. I care more about the digital currency coming down the pipe and the digital IDs coming down the pipe and the technocracy that's coming down to destroy pretty much all our lifestyle and the millions of chickens being killed and things like that. Then being able to tweet about it. That's why there was a guy that tweeted about 2.7 million chickens were gassed, I think it was today.
5.3. 5.3 were burned alive.
And I retweeted it saying, hey, at least we could tweet about it without getting censored. Yeah, your food supply is getting destroyed in front of your eyes, but we care about if we can tweet or not. I think it's just one of those things. And meanwhile, while this is going on, we'll get into that story later, we could be nuked any minute now. And our government is still just poking that bear, poking it a little bit more. And all we care about is tweeting. Why don't we just care? The NFL drafts tonight too. It's bread and circuses. But when are we going to lose the bread? And when we lose the circuses, will people even know what bread and circuses even is, or whatever the right word is for that? And will it be time enough to be able to fix or fight what's coming down the pipe? I think this is one of those things, see what the right hand's doing while you're going to get clocked with the left.
Yeah, absolutely. The food supply thing, even though it's starting to be covered by people like Tucker and others, it's still not enough coverage to the fact that the food supply is being deeply impacted. But people, and it's conservatives really the most that are just so jacked up about Twitter. Fwaz, I don't get it. I don't know what conservatives their attraction to Twitter is. And how they're just, it's like the girl that would never date them. Now she's broken up with her 15th boyfriend and she's going to give you a chance. And it's like, sweet, it's my time. And it's like, well, do you really want to go there? But the point is, there's a lot of expectations coming with this. There's no way conservatives can come out of this without being disappointed. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, but I think Steve and Jonathan brilliantly pointed this out, but I'm also cautiously optimistic. But you're not wrong. But I think what's happening is with the conservatives, we've taken so many L's lately that when we perceive something to be a win, we start to, like, you remember the Little Giants movie when they got that 1 yard and they just went crazy for it?
Yeah.
This is our 1 yard game. We haven't scored yet. So, I mean, I get their excitement. What puzzles me is the fact that Elon Musk hasn't really taken over Twitter yet. That doesn't happen until I believe October or a little bit later. So there's something going on here that's kind of in the background. Let's be cautious because what could end up happening is, and again, like Jonathan said, and I agree with him here, I don't want to attribute everything on this grandmaster plan that is inevitable. Because like Father Ripperger once said, the devil's not under every rock. He's under every other rock. So we can't really attribute everything to some great master plan. Let me more nuance here. So the fact that they're taking all this stuff down, allowing you to have freedom of speech, which I think is a silly word. It should be liberality of speech, because freedom of speech means that speech that we ought to say in order for us to reach some certain truth, because we don't have the freedom or the moral freedom to blaspheme God online. So the Catholics' understanding of freedom of speech is a little bit different. So my whole thing with Twitter is, it seems to me like they're shredding all this evidence before he takes over. That could be a good thing. Or the fact that they're allowing all of these things to happen so they can go ahead and reappeal or change section, I believe it's 230, to give more power to the government. I'm not saying that Elon Musk is controlled opposition. It just could be that he made a chess move. Now those who are opposed to freedom of speech are going to play their hand as well. So again, cautiously optimistic. It's a good thing. What we're seeing here on Twitter. Let's take the 1 yard gain and let's get back to work here, because this is not over, and this is a very small victory in this gigantic battle, because they're still winning. Look what happened. Macron got reelected. Globalism is slowly starting to gain traction. You see the other side coming back with nationalism. There's this great battle between the two going on right now worldwide. So let's just keep fighting. But yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, absolutely, because that was something that was pretty interesting to see Le Pen give Macron a run for his money. Now they're spinning it like, oh, it was great that we even got this many. But, tiny Emmanuel, I like to call him the childless loser, Emmanuel Macron. He shouldn't have been able to get reelected. But unfortunately, that's what democracy gives you. And that's what I know, Steve, WEF guy. I get it. I know.
But wait, there's more.
So, speaking of globalists or globalist agendas, let's move on to our next
story. My fault, hit the wrong button. That was Macron getting pelted by tomatoes. But I'm sorry. Can I interrupt 1 second?
Go ahead. Jump in.
We mentioned Macron, who, again, if anybody thought voting was real, there you go. I mean, Le Pen was up at the beginning of the month. They're not going to let WF isn't going to let their boy loose. What happened today?
They got that shipping container of 80,000 votes.
Yeah. I mean, it's the older people, 70s and 80s, were voting for him. Yeah, right. France today introduces digital ID days after Macron's reelection.
Shocking.
Yeah, color me shocked.
Whatever.
And here, Mr. Popular. Being pelted by tomatoes.
Hey man, I didn't like Theodore Roosevelt, but at least he got shot like a man. He didn't protect him. So if you're gonna get pelted with tomatoes, take it like a man, bro. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. But let's move on to the next story we have up here. Pope says no to Kiev and cancels meeting with Russian patriarch. So apparently the Vatican will never stop its diplomatic efforts. However, the meeting between the Pope and Russian Orthodox Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, which was planned for June, has been canceled out of concern it would cause confusion. Now, we know Pope Francis would never do anything to confuse anybody, so that's a shock that they would even go there. But in this regard, what does that say to you when you look at this article and you look at this, and Pope Francis telling reporters he was considering a visit to the Ukraine capital, but now he is not. He's stepping back. So, Jonathan, what is your feeling towards this? What kind of vibe do you get off of this, where Pope Francis was talking about going to Kiev and meeting with the Russian Orthodox, whatever they call them? I'm sorry to our Orthodox friends. The patriarch, the Russian Orthodox patriarch. What are your feelings with this whole situation, Jonathan?
Well, I feel pretty strongly that this is the Pope's way of saying, you know what, I really stepped in at this time. Let me back out.
What do you mean stepped in it? What do you think? What do you mean stepped in it?
So, good question. I'm sorry, I should have been clear. Effectively, what happened?
It makes me feel important.
So most of the Byzantine Catholics that care and those that are still persevering in the faith, that's most of them, were absolutely furious that the Pope had asked a Russian Orthodox and a Greek Catholic Ukrainian to basically participate in one of the Stations of the Cross together at the famous live Station of the Cross inside the Colosseum there towards the end of Lent. And just some of the other things the Pope was doing or saying, I mean, he was really taking it hard and heavy, even from those that have danced around on the Byzantine Catholic side, have danced around anything embarrassing or slightly unorthodox that he's done or said in the past. They'd always just been very deferential to the Pope, but they were not, especially Ukrainian Greek Orthodox, or Ukrainian Greek Catholics rather, but even other Greek Catholics or Byzantine Catholics of various other shapes and sorts were really hard on him about that, and just the fact that it seemed that the Pope was wanting to give some sort of, for them, photo op to Kirill, the basically the head of the Russian Orthodox Church in Russia, and who has his hands in a lot of other Orthodox ventures as well. And so my take is that this, after seeing the huge blowback that he got from that, and I mean just for various things from people who before had been some of his biggest cheerleaders, I think to their eternal shame, in some of the other things they cheered him on. But I think this is just his way of backing out of saying anything publicly about this besides, please pray for peace. So, is it a good thing or a bad thing is kind of hard to say, because what would have happened in a meeting with Kirill that would have benefited anyone? Not sure, really hard to foresee any sort of positives coming out of that. And what would he have done or said in a trip to Kiev? I don't know. But yeah, it just seems like his way of trying to cover his own tracks there.
Yeah. So Steve, this meeting between the Pope and the Russian Patriarch, now it's being canceled. Your thoughts on it, and any possibility that Pope Francis could make any kind of inroads? I understand the meeting with the Russian Patriarch, because at least from a symbolic stance, Putin has made every effort to promote the Russian Orthodox Church, going to the masses, building cathedrals, doing all these kind of, some would say, propaganda pieces. But that would be a way, if you could get in his ear, to see if there could be any influence on Putin or not. But this now it's canceled, so Pope Francis kind of built something up and then just kind of pulled the rug out from everybody. Your thoughts, Steve?
I'm gonna have to side with Jonathan on this one. I don't know much about it outside just the eyeball test of it. Going, well, if it's the Russian part, is this one of these? I don't want to say propaganda, but is this political right here? I mean, with the Ukraine guys, no problem, but the Russian guys don't want to touch anything Russian. It's like Wimbledon. They just let Russian tennis players be allowed to play at Wimbledon. Anything Russian is bad right now. And I mean, just like we just had with they bombed the train stations the other day, but the U.S. told them what was going on. At least the church didn't tell them, "Hey, we're coming into town," and give the rabid Ukrainian guys, like the Azov Battalion and other guys that want some kind of dramatic war, to know what the itinerary is before they could do something bad, which, unlike some people will probably think, actually happens. But then it also goes back to, dare I say, this promise of peace. After since the consecration, I mean, I could say Clown Planet's been up an hour and a half longer. We have nuclear war literally on the fingertips, and we're poking the bear, like I said before, to be incinerated, because we don't have weapons like no one has the weapons that Russia does right now, defense or offensive. And we'll talk about this a little bit with Brandon sending in more money just today, more weapons, and there's a report they don't even know where the weapons go. So I mean, hopefully the Pope's going into just basically obviously it is to talk about the end to the war against Ukraine, but Scott Ritter has it best. He goes, they're just, Ukraine's going to lose this war.
They've already lost. If you look at it,
I mean, there's no way for them to win this. Unless you watch talking heads on TV, I guess we're talking heads, but CNBC and NBC and Fox and all that. But yeah, they'll tell you Ukraine has it. Every Ukraine's got to die for this. Nah, the Zelenko needs to stop now before he gets any more of his people killed. And, Putin, if they want to wipe out Ukraine, they could have done it 2 weeks ago. It just, overwhelmed them. They got way more people. They've gone in with a fraction of what they could have gone in, and it's a what fest out there, and it just maybe the Holy Father's trying to end it, but they're talking about. I saw Ritter talk about this supposed to go on for another couple of weeks. There's other reports that's go on for years. What needs to be done? Does the nation literally need to be evaporated before our eyes before people get their heads out? Like Gilbert what's his face? Gilbert Dockerow has an article saying basically, what are you people thinking out there? Here it is. They must be out of their minds. How the collective West is stumbling towards nuclear Armageddon. He's not a U.S., pro-Russia guy, pro-Ukraine guy. He's looking at this from Russia and saying, guys, they are not messing around out there. When he says food for thought after he practices Satan 2, he means food for thought.
Mm-hmm. He does. He really does. So we have this, we have the and I just sent you a video if you want to get it up, where the reporters on Russian TV are essentially saying, yeah, we're going to start nuking in a bit if this keeps going. In the meantime, while he's getting that up, Fwaz, you have Pope Francis extending an offer, then not extending an offer, and it's one of these things where I guess we can talk about how the Pope kind of just does things off the cuff sometimes and then has to backtrack, which is very frustrating for us in a multitude of ways. And I think as the Catholic Church is looking for, leadership in this time, instead of just being like, pray for Ukraine and let's see what happens, we actually would have liked the idea of having some leadership from Pope Francis. Your thoughts on the whole ordeal between him and the Russian Patriarch?
Yeah, thank you. I think Jonathan touched on it brilliantly. I don't have much to add, to be honest with you, other than the fact that let's not forget that Pope Francis's health is not great either. He was talking about knee problems, but I think there was, I don't know if it was a rumor or not, but there was some that happened at the beginning of the year about him having some type of stomach problems, possible cancer. But that could be some part of it, where he just does not, and you can see him recently. He's not really up to himself. I know that they had to drive a Fiat up the stairs because he couldn't walk. He had canceled some, I believe, liturgical events as well. So that might have something to do with it as well, his health. So definitely got to pray for him and the church, because you're right. We do need leaders, especially among the faithful, among the Catholic Church, which has so much power among the world, that could possibly be an instrument of peace. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a topic that we kind of we're all speculating on because we don't know the interior modes of the Holy Father. But we're going to use the talk about Russia and this outreach and the failing of it. We're going to transition over to Biden and him giving just boatloads of money. But first, this is Russian state TV, and just listen to what they have to say about the conflict.
Если мы проигрываем на Украине, или начинается Третья мировая. Лично я считаю более реалистичным путь Третьей мировой. Потому что, зная нас, зная нашего руководителя Путина Владимира Владимировича, вот самое невероятное, что в конце концов все это закончится ядерным ударом, мне представляется все же более вероятным, чем вот такое развитие событий. К ужасу моему, с одной стороны, с другой стороны, к пониманию, что, значит так. Знаешь, меня... Но мы-то в рай. Меня... Они просто...
Putting the U.S. on notice this morning as the Biden administration sends more weapons to Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned the White House to stop arming Ukraine and said there would be, quote, unpredictable consequences. The warning comes as Moscow escalates its offensive in eastern Ukraine and tries to recover from recent major defeats, including the sinking of one of its warships. Deborah Alfarone is at the White House with the very latest. Deborah, good morning.
Good morning, Michelle. The White House says that $800 million worth of weapons are expected to arrive in Ukraine soon. This as the administration is considering which high-level ranking official they're going to send to Ukraine as an additional show of support. The latest shipment of weapons by the Biden administration brings the total to more than $2.5 billion since the Russian invasion began 52 days ago. For the first time, weapons will include heavy artillery, in addition to more Javelin anti-tank missiles.
We're continuing to supply Ukraine with the weapons resources they need to defend their country. We won't be able to advertise every piece of security we give because our allies and partners are supplying to Ukraine through us. But advanced weapons and ammunition are flowing in every single day.
Russia is drawing a line, sending a formal diplomatic note to the Biden administration, warning the U.S. against further arming Ukraine. As the conflict intensifies in eastern Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky has been hosting a number of allied leaders in the capital, Kyiv, including a surprise visit by UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson last weekend. Before he boarded Air Force One Thursday, President Biden was asked if he would go.
Will you send senior officials to Ukraine?
Well, we're making that decision now. Thank you.
Who would you send?
What was the reason? You ready to go? Yeah.
White House press secretary Jen Psaki said the president would not make that trip.
He is ready. He's ready for anything. The man likes a fast car, some aviators. He's ready to go to Ukraine. It's true. He does.
He doesn't know where he is.
We are not sending the president to Ukraine.
Just tell him he's in the library. You're in Ukraine.
Мерятся вмешаться в происходящие события со стороны, то они должны знать, да, и будут создавать для России неприемлемые для нас угрозы стратегического характера, они должны знать, что наш ответно-встречные удары будут молниеносными, быстрыми. У нас есть для этого все инструменты, такие, которыми не может сейчас похвастаться никто, а мы хвастаться не будем. Мы будем их использовать, если потребуется. И хочу, чтобы все об этом знали. Как уже говорил, мы ответим на грубые, часто топорные внешние рестрикции, на разрушение всех цивилизованных прав и договоров, на попытки нас изолировать большей свободой предпринимательства, открытостью к честному партнерству, уважением и надежной защитой собственников и добросовестных инвесторов.
They show the contraction of 1.4% in the fourth quarter.
Well, I'm not concerned about a recession. And I mean, you're always concerned about a recession, but the GDP, fell to 1.4%. But here's the deal. We also had last quarter consumer spending and business investment and residential investment increased at significant rates, both for leisure as well as hard products.
I can't listen to him anymore.
So that's what we're having here is the issue with the arming is that it's a false sense of victory. There's short of nuclear weapons, there's no way Ukraine can handle a prolonged protracted campaign with the Russians. Secondly, and here's something that I got to give credit to Mike Church of the Mike Church show saying, when you send that many weapons, you're not just giving heavy artillery to like the random guy in the corner of the street. Like here's some heavy artillery. Have a good one. Soldiers need to go there with them. U.S. soldiers, and just like in Vietnam and other places, they come in as advisors, and that's the first step to getting U.S. troops on the ground, because that is the Biden regime's ultimate goal, is to get us involved in this conflict, because NATO and the West cannot have Russia as a sovereign power for whatever reason you want to come up with. They just cannot deal with this. They pushed them this far. They kept pushing. And now that they finally got their war that they've been dying to have since the Cold War, since the 60s, 70s, and 80s, now that they finally have it, they're not going to let go of it. So, John, we have the Russians who have, in this 52-day conflict, multiple times said, listen, we'll stop if you stop giving weapons to Ukraine. We'll stop. We freed the Donbass. We're good. We don't need any more of this. And yet time after time after time, every time a fig leaf or peace offering is put out there, the West, led by Vladimir Zelensky, continue to tell them to go pound sand, despite the fact that there's no credible way they can win.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't disagree with anything that's been said so far or that was in the videos. The only caveat I'd have, I mean, you guys at least here know how much I distrust Zelensky and anything that he or the rest of the current Ukrainian government would say about anything, as well as the NATO allies and anybody from our White House or State Department. But the only people I distrust about as much, even on official, maybe even especially on official Russian state media, is the Russian government, because habitually they've been masters. Even after the fall of the Soviet Union, the Russians have been masters of controlled opposition, because it's one of the first things that if you read much about Putin, one of the first things he did in 2000, like basically the first year he's kind of in office there, progressing the presidency from prime ministry, is take over. I think it was two of the biggest media outlets there in Russia, basically disband them, and boot out the oligarchs that were there. I mean, quite a daring move, at least in one sense. But I mean, he's pretty much had his hand on the media since then. So yes, as nuts as all of the NATO response, collective NATO response has been to anything said by Russia, I don't want to downplay that. Part of that could be that our State Department, White House, and NATO knows just how dishonest any sort of Russian comment is about an offer of peace. And in fact, I would even say this: even the curious conversation this lady's having. I mean, very professional looking on the Russian media outlet there, about the possibility and expectation even of World War III, knowing our leader, knowing us, as she said. I wouldn't put it past Putin to have had that orchestrated so that the threats out there, and maybe just to get a complete collapse from the Ukrainian government or from us. So I mean, to be honest, I don't know what to believe or whom to believe, because I think the Russians that you're going to hear from in an official capacity are just as dishonest most of the time as are Zelensky and crew. So I kind of throw my hands up, and it looks bad, and yeah, you can get on to the response, but at the same time, it's hard to know what you could actually believe from the current Russian government.
So, Steve, who are you pulling for in a fight between two WEF guys?
Not a well, for us. We're going to be the losers in it,
right? Absolutely. But the whole use of state media and the fact that NATO wants this, they want this conflict, and the U.S. is right involved with that. For the military-industrial complex, they need this war, because these bombs they make, they got to go somewhere.
Yeah, George Carlin, we love war.
Yeah, war like people.
Yeah, that's what drives our economies. War. We don't care about anything. We love bombing brown people. Now I guess we get back to the Germans with the white people. Well, let's get the timeline the last couple of weeks, because we missed last week. Monday, Putin threatened basically that you saw the first one: do not give more weapons to the Ukraine. And like I said, the Off Guardian has a report saying that we don't even know where the weapons go afterwards. It's pretty much destroyed, or it's old stuff. They're gone. We have no clue where they go, which is talk about a waste. The next day, Brandon says, we're sending more money. We're sending more weapons. The next day, Putin launches a test run of Satan 2, his ICBM missile that is hypersonic. And he said in 15 minutes, it covered 3,000 or 4,000 miles. It can eliminate a land as big as France. And there's no, according to a United Kingdom, kind of like a James Bond type guy, he said his job is, I got it on Cloud Planet a couple weeks ago. His job is to be able to keep up with who's got what weapons and make sure that MAD, mutual assured destruction, is still in play. And he said, quote, it doesn't exist anymore because of what they have. His toys from 2018 that he rolled out. And he said there's not only they have the offensive, but they have the defensive. So if they shoot something, we can't shoot anything back because they got stuff to knock it down. We can't knock anything they have down. They're so big and good and fast. So that was Wednesday. And then today, Brandon comes out saying we want $33 billion more of weapons going out there. Now, Ritter has talked about no nuclear. He doesn't think it'll go nuke. Gilbert, who's, like I said, he's the Russian, I don't want to say propagandist, but he's in Russia. He knows the things. He's not going to be on CNBC. He's on Press TV a lot more. He thinks that the West is completely out of their minds because he's crazy enough to pull the trigger, which, yeah, I mean, stay in a state of grace, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you go to confession just in case you're incinerated. At least you have a clean clean soul when you go up. Was it yesterday? Yesterday, Russia cut off gas to NATO countries. Poland get 55% of their gas from there, and Bulgaria gets 90% of their gas from Russia. So that's big. That's NATO. And NATO's fighting a proxy war. You've heard that term before with Vietnam, for example. We're in war. We're in a war right now without officially calling it. As you brought up before with what Mike said and what Jonathan's mentioned, we're influencing right now in the war. Now it's just about how much influence are going to be and how much will Vladimir take to say, hey, stop doing this. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to, like I said, bark, 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 and not bite. You bark too close, you get too close to the bark of the dog, it's going to bite back, and hopefully he won't push any buttons. But man, you just got to scratch your head at some of this. Going, he just test ran that Satan 2 last Wednesday, and here we are a week and a day later. There are $33 billion more going to you guys. Going, you almost want to send a telegram if they make them anymore to Vladimir saying, hey, we on the South, we're not, it's DC. Aim it somewhere else. I don't know. It's just one of those things that nobody's talking about in the news. You see, like I saw in a court, Beck just put a video out, $33 billion for Ukraine. Will Putin retaliate? You see, 60 Minutes and things like that will have Brandon sending out more money, but they aren't saying what Vladimir's saying back. So, like Jonathan said, propaganda is on both sides. I mean, if you're looking at the top, the field of 64, Russia is just below Ukraine in terms of corruption. So everyone's going to do propaganda on both sides. It's, what they're saying to the Russian people is going to be different what the people are saying to the United States, people in the Americas, or people in Ukraine or France, etc. You're going to get smoke blowing up somewhere by somebody. Then you got to be prudent, be able to figure out what's going on and who's saying this, and you got to dig in a little deeper than just click the TV. Let me have the TV tell me what to think. There are sources out there that are way better, and you got to dig in. You got to search them out. You have to do your due diligence, not just take whatever you get on TV. Even us, look up what we're saying and then see, hey, are they saying what they're, is that for sure? That's why I link everything in Clown Planet and even this. Here's all the links. Read them for yourself. Come up with your own thoughts if you want. But this is just bringing up ideas because you're not hearing this on local TV shows. Again, that's why that's why we came up with the news show. You're not going to hear this on most TV news shows, Catholic included, definitely.
Yeah. Well, speak for yourself. Everything I say is 100% rock solid. So
I rip the Catholic. The armed Catholic is always on the ball. We know this.
No, totally not full of wind every single time. So, Flaz, how can the Russians even think of trying to escalate conflict when we have the most diverse and trans accepting military in the world? I mean, he may have these missiles, but we have the 101st Tranny Brigade. So, I mean, at this point, if things do get to a point, I just don't know how they're going to handle it. And on a serious note, the continued escalations between these two, there can't be a winner in this. I mean, Ukraine is going to essentially turn into a parking lot, and we're going to get more conflict and more death and more destruction.
Yeah, well, everybody's got their interests. Everybody's got to hold on to their interests. You saw Lindsey Graham talking about how this guy needs to be taken out, because I mean, Ukraine for the longest time has just been this area of money laundering for the elite, and they're trying to save it as much as possible. At the same time, in Putin, you've got this thug that literally is being backed into a corner, and he has to make some decision for his cause, and everybody's got their cause that they have to hold on to, and you've just got a lot of egos they don't want to let go of. It's unfortunate. Like you said, the people who are going to be affected the most are first and foremost going to be the Catholics and the Orthodox in those areas. Second of all, just the citizens. So the elites have their bunkers; they don't really care. So it's a tough situation. I mean, Trump came out and said it. I think it was this week where he said something has to be done quickly, or he anticipates some type of nuclear reaction. Everybody's got their interest that they have to hold on to, and it's unfortunate that everybody's works in the middle of this. So as far as we all know, Zelensky is a puppet, a corrupt puppet. We know that Putin is the thug. He's been backed into a corner here. He has to, and like Jonathan said, I agree. He has so many hands in that country. Controlled opposition, he easily could tell the media to put out a message so that you could put the whole world on notice. And you don't want superpowers like the U.S. or Russia to go at it, because everybody just it just gets involved. And it was like, I remember at the time when Saddam was taken out, he was a Sunni and he had the Shiites under control. But as soon as he was taken out, the Sunnis and the Shiites had the civil war in Iraq, and guess who was caught in between? It was the Christians, unfortunately, and they all fled.
Yep.
And this is what's happening. But you're looking at two gigantic superpowers across the world, and it's not good. I just hope that Our Lady can intercede here, and we can have some peace or some agreement here soon. But sending money, you can tell that they're trying to hold on to something, even though it's a lost cause for Ukraine. They're still trying to climb their back way into this. They're trying to preserve it. There's a possibility that they have, some information in the Ukraine, something in there that they don't want the Russians to get into, some back dealings from the past. I don't know. It's a tough one.
It is. And the idea, did you all know that Ukraine was one of the largest, or it's not gone yet. It's one of the largest ports, if you will, or largest places that surrogacy is done, illegal child trafficking, where you grow a baby and give it to somebody else. Ukraine was one of the largest places for that kind of stuff. And don't forget that with Zelensky was pro-abort, he is pro-abort, pro-LGBT, pro-everything in that regard. Also the shady dealings with Hunter Biden, the chemical weapons labs that they admitted to, and then they were like, just getting there, they're fine. They make aerosol and whatever else they could say. In that regard, it's just more fighting between two mega organizations, or under the same roof, and we're all just pawns. And that's why, as Steve says, the best part is you can't get wrapped up on this stuff. You got to make sure you're in a state of grace. Keep your house in a state of grace as well, because no matter what, you still don't know when your number is going to get called up. Speaking of Catholicism, let's move to another story here. That broke last night. I came back to Twitter last night, and there was weird things like Marjorie for Pope and all of this other kind of stuff. And I was going, what are we talking about here? Come to see that Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene, the representative from Georgia, went on, of course, Church Militant, which was probably her first mistake. But she had some very interesting things to say to Michael Voris in regards to the Catholic Church. If you want to take a listen to just one of these clips.
Is that Satan's controlling the church. The church is not doing its job, and it's not adhering to the teachings of Christ, and it's not adhering to what the Word of God says we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to live. And what they're doing by saying, oh, we have to love these people and take care of these migrants and love one another. This is loving one another. Yes, we are supposed to love one another, but their definition of what love one another means destroying our laws. It means completely perverting what our Constitution says. It means taking unreal advantage of the American taxpayer, and it means pushing a globalist policy on the American people and forcing America to become something that we are not supposed to be.
Now, I guess the thing is, nobody realized up until last night that Marjorie Taylor Greene was a cradle Catholic, baptized in the church, married in the church, children baptized in the church. But she put out this long letter because Bill Donahue, after hearing that, sprung into action, saying all of these other things. How dare you? Yeah, it's pretty much essentially, you can just sum it up there. And first of all, on the immigration thing, I agree with her 100%. Catholic Charities has been essentially used as a front to bus in as many illegal aliens as possible. And other charities that have the name Catholic on them have been money laundering schemes for the feds. You can just take a look at a website like the Lepanto Institute, and they've been tracking this stuff really well. But the idea that Marjorie Taylor Greene says, and I quote, "America's Catholic bishops are some of the worst in the world. They have lied, deceived, and committed despicable criminal acts for decades, driving millions out of the church, causing children to kill themselves, emotionally crippling others, and sentencing countless victims to lives of deep mental pain." That's some pretty bold words there from Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene, cradle Catholic. John, I don't know if you got to read the whole letter, but just seeing the clip and reading this, agree, disagree, is the tone off? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I'm going to be putting in our basically our doghouse for the week, Michael Voris. How did he not interrupt her while she was going on and say, okay, the critiques you have for the bishops, right, correct. Okay, you said that is accurate. That happens to, yes, that corresponds to the truth. But when she said the teachings of the Catholic Church and then says the church's interpretation of love thy neighbor is off. Wait a minute, wait, we need to distinguish, Representative Greene, please. Let's distinguish for our audience here who may, let's just be honest, the folks watching Church Militant may be beguiled by that sort of poor use of logic and say, all right, I've heard a bunch of statements that I know to be true. Yes, the bishops have handled things horribly, collectively, and most of them individually for a long, long time. But you made a leap of logic there that's just not, you can't say that. The way that Catholic Charities acts, the way that Bill Donahue happens to very curiously pick and choose his targets. Yes, all that stuff is horrible and we can critique that. But you don't jump from that to saying the church has erred in her teaching, or the church has changed the definition of love thy neighbor, which is given to us already in the Old Testament, Leviticus 19. And then our Lord reiterates it, churches, yes, sure, further expanded on it throughout the centuries, but it's the Revelation was closed with the death of the last apostle. All right, the church does not have any authority to change that definition. Show me where the church has even claimed to change that definition. Off the cuff comments from bishops or even popes don't change the church's teaching on that. So I was so surprised that Michael Voris just sat there nodding his goofy head. I'm sorry for the critique, but or for the harsh words, but that was embarrassing. But yes, that always the problem with folks who are going to go after the church is you want them to speak slowly. You want to have a chance to interrupt if they make a leap of logic from all the critiques that may have a basis in reality to some sort of critique about, well, now the church herself has gone off course here. So, no, that's not the way it works. There's a distinguishing between those who promote sin, but are they saying that sin is now the good? Are they calling this the official teaching of the church? Like, no, there's a clear distinction there. So she had a few things right, but here's my joke, because I have an aunt who grew up in the same town that she lives in now. Marjorie Taylor Greene's problem is that she lives in Rome. Now it's Rome, Georgia, but it's hard to live in Rome and not be affected by it. So she needs to get out of Rome and maybe get back to Mother Rome,
Georgia,
the Catholic Church.
Georgia, indeed. So Steve, the the point she made and the fact that she called out the bishops, I think a lot of us are not very happy with our bishops and the way they shut down the churches, the way they've kind of been very wishy-washy on abortion and the issues that were like, please fight for us. They're like, just love one another and move on and make sure you put some money in the collection basket. Peace be with you. And we're all kind of like, that's not what we're looking for. But in that regard, so we're looking for that. But at the same time, Marjorie Taylor Greene is making the statement where it's like, I left because of pedophiles. So there's no pedophiles anywhere else by that logic. You shouldn't have kids in public schools, which I recommend anyway, or libraries or at the YMCA or any of these places, because if her only baseline is pedophilia, which obviously we all think is terrible, but Kennedy Hall was on our Crusade channel this morning. He said, just go to a different parish. You know, you pulled the ripcord and jumped out of the car when it was doing 90 when you could have, just slowed down a little bit. So your response to her overall statements?
And it's the easy cop out, man, isn't it? I mean, I was just telling you guys off camera that one of the top 12 enemies of YouTube because of the Rona, Erin, I can't think of her last name. So on Twitter is Erin the Health Nut. I think that's it. She's former Catholic. She admits that proudly and boldly, and she put a thing up. Hey, Fauci's Catholic, Biden's Catholic. Who else did she say? Gates is. She said Gates. I think she said Gates. Gates is Catholic. I'm just saying that's why I left along with the pedophile things. I'm like, all right, so you got bad people. I don't see her leaving the, like you said, the health profession. You see our kids go to private or public school. You're upset at the teachers. You're upset at that 1% of evil, bad, dare we say, homosexual problems that we had. Men that were doing it. They're not going to admit that part. It's one of those when you see that meme where they're sweating and they hit the button. It's like be mad at the pedophilia, be mad at the homosexual part. It's just the same group in that category. And yeah, I mean, how you leave? You don't know what you left if that's the case. All right, why are you doing that? But these guys care only about America. Notice she said about the Constitution thing. Guess what? The church will be around long after the United States goes away. It was there long before it. It was long before the Constitution. There's a book called American Scripture. It's based on the Declaration of Independence. But those guys, hey, Rick, Mike does that that docudrama Faith of Our Fathers, I think it is.
Yep.
It gets into it. These guys were literally thinking it's inspired by God. They were the shining city on the hill. This is Atlantis. I mean, all this stuff that you hear of, we think that we are above the church here in the United States. The sacrosanct Constitution. People care more about free speech than what the church teaches on what free speech is. People care more about what the Bill of Rights is more than the 10 Commandments. Kind of funny, it's 10 and 10. It's like South Carolina. Henry McMaster made a decree that churches are essential. And he cited the First Amendment. And I go, wait a minute. The state of South Carolina has a constitution. It has a religious amendment in there. They violated their own constitution when they shut down the states, and they're trying to blame the feds for it, which didn't shut down anything. It was the own state governors. I'm scratching my head going, nobody in South Carolina remember that? It wasn't Trump at the time, and no, not trying to say Trump was doing good. He said he did allow the states to do whatever he wanted. He didn't close down anything. The states did, and they're trying to throw the feds under the bus in that. Oh, the First Amendment. Wait a minute, South Carolina has a constitution. Nobody even, when I was in Colorado, I was there a week and somebody brought a state representative there to talk about running for the state house. And he brought up the Second Amendment. And I go, sir, that's the federal constitution. What about the Colorado state constitution? Here it is. I think it was like section 6 or whatever. I've been there a week and already looked that up. I had people there that have been there for years. The guy who ran the GOP in Colorado had no clue about the Colorado state constitution. I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? But I mean, it's sacrosanct. We jokingly say you're hell Obamas during Obama days and put your prayer rug out the Mordor. And Literally, that's how it is. Mordor will save us. DC will save us. Government will save us. The church, it's after the French Revolution. The church was up here, state here. That swapped state over to church now. State runs everything. If people want to talk about getting back to, like, I don't know, pre-55, we got to get back to that mindset that the church is in charge of the world. It's, well, kind of like then when Paul VI said at the United Nations things, you're the saviors of the world. Maybe he didn't really mean that I think he might have said it off cuff. I don't know if it was in a document or something like that, but we have that idea that, oh, it's the UN or NATO. And no one looks at the church for salvation. Even the devoted Catholics out there, you look at it going, and this was in Garage just a little bit ago, was the governments will be long and gone while this church will be there forever. And it's just, the answer to everything is in the church. If we just get back to focusing on that and harping on that, and then obviously evangelizing like that, we will evangelize the 2024 presidential campaign to the 38th millionth power over asking our neighbor to go to a mass.
Indeed. And I know for a fact here in Texas, it's Article 1, Section 23 that which comes from God and allows me to keep and bear arms. And I know that offhand. So people, when they ask me, what about the Second Amendment? I say, yeah,
put it on your arm.
Right. Yeah. Just boo. Well, I got to get the guns up before I do that. Anyway, Fawaz. So, what do you do? How do you look at the fact that she was very, very, very praising of America and our laws and all this other kind of stuff? And do you buy the fact that after she made that statement of divorce and after Bill Donahue came after her, she, in this very, very long statement, said, bishops, when I said controlled by Satan, I wasn't talking about the Catholic Church. I was talking about you. Do you buy that? Is that a cop-out? Your thoughts on Marjorie, Machine Gun Marjorie, the former, well, she is a Catholic. She's just not practicing.
Yeah, it sounds like a cop-out to me. If you don't mind, I just very briefly, I'd like to go back to Vatican I. You see, when we're, like Jonathan made this great distinction between what some of the opinions of the bishops or the status quo of the bishop versus what the Catholic Church has always taught. Back in Vatican I, we remember when they declared papal infallibility, you had some bad egg bishops and cardinals at the time that wanted everything the Pope said to be dogma, because if you can control the Pope, then you can control dogma. It was in the Relatio, the document, I believe, was Bishop Gaser, that was his name, the one who had his minions, and they came out and said, no, it has to be under the confines of this objective dogma in order for us to declare something to be infallible or dogmatic or ex cathedra, which was great, because you can't just have whatever, if the Pope's needs is, we can't just be like, okay, now this is divinely inspired. At the same time, most Catholics don't know that. They hold on to every opinion of the Pope, every opinion of the bishop, as if it is dogma. So in her case, I don't know if she's properly catechized or not. I don't know her too well personally or at all. But my thing is, if you knew that, then you knew to make that distinction to begin with. If you're properly catechized, you understand that what the bishops do in their private lives or what they like to do within their parishes doesn't always necessarily translate to what the church is teaching. And if we're going to have something, this is the beauty of the church. There's an objective teaching that you could always pinpoint the opinion and towards. For example, this is where I laugh when the left says disinformation. Well, we must combat disinformation. You're the same people who don't believe in objective truth. So how what objective truth are you going to hold people under the fire of the disinformation? If you say there's no such thing as objective truth, then how can you combat disinformation? Because everything is objectively true. Everything is subjective. So what is disinformation? It's the same thing, here with the church. There's objective dogmas in which we have to ascribe to, and sometimes the bishops go off of that because they have their own agendas. And for you to leave the Catholic Church, or for you to criticize the church to begin with, and then retract because Greta Donahue came out and said what he said, To me, it sounds like a cop out. Know your facts before. And you're right. Voris should have corrected her because he knows better.
Yeah. Well, all I'll say is Saint Athanasius said it best at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. The floor of hell is paved with the skull of bishops. We've always had bad bishops. We've always had bad priests. And if you're going to be like, oh, these guys are bad, I'm out. How strong was your faith to begin with? Because it's not about them. It's about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's who it is in his teachings. So yeah, I agree with a lot of the stuff she said. I'm not very happy with the bishops. At the same time, it's like, come on, don't give me that nonsense. Don't do that. Don't blame pedophilia for you leaving. So but guess what, guys? It's good news for us. It's another soul we get to pray back into the church. So I think we all need to make sure we do that. Rosaries will be said, masses will be said, and hopefully we can get her back, because if we can get her back, she's vocal enough. She might be nice to have on our side for every once in a while for that.
If you guys don't mind, I think this is a great opportunity for the big Catholic accounts to reach out. Reach out to her.
Yeah, I think I would absolutely 100% agree with you, Fwaz. Steve, you got one more thing? You're on mute.
Remember, she talked about bringing up free speech, and we tie that back to with Twitter and all that.
Mm-hmm.
What you hear a lot from Garcia Moreno was, "Error, like evil, has no rights." Yeah. You have the free speech to preach error or heresy. Look back at Catholic Spain; they wouldn't let Protestants preach error on the streets because the soul was greater than the state. And what do we look at now? Oh, I will fight for your right to say it. I might not agree with it, but I'll fight for the right to say it.
I hate that phrase. Yeah. It's gross. Hey, let's fight for your right. Shut up. Your opinion is stupid. But that's a little mean spirited. But yeah, Steve, that's very correct in that regard, because we're all more excited about Twitter than we are about making sure people actually attain the beatific vision. So we are going to move on to the end of the programming. And first, I'm going to go around. I'm going to get Eastertide thoughts. Since we are in Eastertide, I forgot to welcome at the beginning of the show. Happy Easter to everybody. I hope you had a blessed Easter and are enjoying Eastertide right now. So if you guys have an Eastertide thought or meditation or something to focus on during this time, we'll go through that, and then we'll go back around and get Saints and Cry Room. So John, are you reading anything? Is there a certain passage or thought that you're working on during this Eastertide? How are you celebrating?
Well, my family and I are a bunch of liturgical nerds. Our little quote is always, you'll have pictures of us passed out on the couch in the middle of Easter Day, death by liturgy. So we love the liturgy. So we've just been meditating on the great text of the Byzantine Divine Liturgy and of the traditional Latin Mass. So the thing that struck me as I was struggling to get out of bed for early morning Mass this morning was, dying, he destroyed our death. That's how he, one of those phrases from the Byzantine liturgy. So that the spirit of penance and saying no, not just to sometimes licit pleasures, but always saying no to Satan. Okay, and yes to God. That's the way we effectively keep Easter throughout the entire year. Dying, he destroyed it. So dying to any sinful desires we may still have, our attachments to sin, even venial sin. And then the beautiful corollary to that, rising, he restored our life. So, at 5:30 in the morning, you're thinking, oh boy, I could really use a little bit more sleep. At 6:30 Mass is there. And, I'm convinced we're by the greatest parish in the world here. We got high Mass every day at 6:30 a.m. So just, you got to get up. Rising, he restored our life. So the way to restore our spiritual life, at least for me and my family right now, is being able to go to a daily Mass. It's only, a few miles away. So even when it's tough to get up early, we're gonna do it. We're gonna get up and go while we can, while our health is there and the gas prices aren't too terribly bad for us. So yeah, that's just a meditation on the Divine Liturgy's, one of its most powerful statements. And then for the Cry Room, yeah, I'm throwing in the hopes that he repents and says something about Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments, Michael Voris, and maybe he can clarify for what it may still be a decent sized audience, what the Catholic teaching is, in distinguishing things that need to be distinguished. As St. Thomas says over and over again in his Summa, distinguendum, you got to distinguish. Okay. So hopefully he'll do that. And then I'll get him out of the Cry Room if he would please do that.
Well, I'll just say this, John. When you're tired in the morning going to mass, just think of people like me who I have to drive 40 minutes every weekend to get to mass, and so would you stop it? So think of guys like me and have joyful perseverance through your tiredness, because I would give anything to have a mass that's 5 minutes away from me on the weekends, let alone every single day. So that's a blessing, dude. I think that's awesome that you guys get that.
You should have asked Greta to be on the show today.
She apparently has been anyway. So if you do it one more time, you have to pay her royalty fees. In that regard. Speaking of which, Steve,
I'll give her carbon credit.
Yeah, she'll take that. Make sure she give it to her in her plastic boat. So Eastertide thought, and then if you want to give me somebody for the cry room, Steve.
Well, everyone knows I'm reading Garage, even though you can't see it right now because I'm banned on YouTube for about a week for a video by a professor in Mexico on the Irish San Patricios, saying it was dangerous. I don't know. I appealed it, but we'll see if I can get it back up. So I can't upload. But yeah, reading him, you to read the joy that he tells you to have for these next 50 days, and no fasting. There's no time to be sad. The things that he said, it's never be good to be sad. No fasting. It's celebrate Easter for the whole time. The joy that brings out of your lives should be just beaming for other people. As people say, they should be looking at you and saying, there's something different about that person. You're smiling more. You're more joyful. Everyone else in the world is kind of down. Again, you listen to what we're talking about, and I told somebody I should be in a straitjacket the way the stuff I read, but you should be happy. You're Catholic. Who cares if a nuke lands on me right now? We went to confession earlier. Hopefully, I did a good job at that, and and especially after Mass, that should be a good thing to be like, hey, we live for the up there, not for right here. And even with the kids, I remember my wife saying something I'm scared for the kids. I go, well, they're 4 and 2, so if that happens, straight up, believe in that. Under the age of region. Yeah. So don't live in fear. I mean, we live in Easter time. Live it. Look at the saints of the week that are brought up. Today was Paul the Cross and Vitalis and St. Louis Gregon, and yesterday was the first Franciscan tertiaries was yesterday. Was that today? Today, Blessed Ludicrous. I'll have it up later. It's a fantastic story, but there's so much gold in the church that you just should. If we paid attention like we should to videos about the good, the true, and the beautiful, like we do about how terrible the things are, or how bad this person is, or that Biden pooped himself, or the Fox News stuff, then maybe we change the world. I'm just saying, focus on more of the good, the true, and the beautiful, and not the terrible, ugly, and the blood drama out there.
And what do you got for your cry room nominee?
Oh, yeah. I'll go St. Scott Ritter for all the stuff that he's been courageously putting out about the Ukraine conflicts. In the cry room, I'll go with Macron for initiating the ID right off the bat after he won this stolen election. And I was going to put Nigeria in until that, because Nigeria ended up hacking like 73 million phones to be able to not being able to use them unless they got some kind of chip. But I'll throw Macron in. He's worth it.
Nice. All right. Excellent. So Fawaz, your Eastertide meditation and your saint and cry room.
Thank you. It's pretty much the same as Steve's and Jonathan's. We have the greatest news in human history. The passion, death, and ultimately the resurrection. The conquering of death and sin through our Lord. And my son just received his first communion last Sunday, and just pure joy in these 50 days of Easter. It's a beautiful thing, and I think it took me back to the simplistic, childlike faith and this awe that my son is receiving our Lord for the first time, and I'm meditating on the fact that I have to be joyous regardless, because while the world is swayed by the winds of the age of the Spirit, we are anchored by the cross, and no matter what happens in between us or through us or what's going on in the world. We can be joyous in the fact that Christ conquered everything and gave us the sacraments and the graces in order for us to be sanctified and then ultimately be and seen in the beatific vision. My saint, we did something good this past couple of weeks. I'll go with what's his name again, DeSantis. The only reason I'll go with DeSantis is because he just passed some bill securing election integrity in his state. I thought that's going to be essential, not just from the federal level of the president, but also the state. And I think that created some redistricting. Now, listen, I don't think there's any difference between the rhinos and the Democrats whatsoever. There's no difference between McCarthy and McConnell, Pelosi or Schumer. Zero. But the fact that there's some redistricting happening, if we can get Schumer, Pelosi out of the way, it'll kind of slow down the Democrats' agenda with whoever they're putting in there. So at least it'll give us some time to get the confession. My cry room person is, how do you say her name? Lorenz, the girl with the TikTok, liberal TikTok, the one who was crying about being doxxed and then went ahead and doxxed the
Taylor Lorenz.
Yeah, her. Yeah, let's put her on there. The hypocrite that she is. She's your typical soldier for the left. They're hypocrites, so I'm going to put her on there for obvious reasons.
Excellent. All right, so I'll throw out for the Eastertide. I usually do one rosary every day. I know I'm not super, whatever. During the Eastertide, that's right. Thank you. That's you, buddy. You gotta pay her now. You enjoy that. You gotta give her all your carbon credits. You're done. But I try to do 3. I try to do all 3 every day for the Eastertide, reflecting on all 3 phases: joyful, sorrowful, and glorious. Not luminous. And if you do luminous, whatever. But that's what I've been trying to do. Make a conscious effort to try and do all 3. Some of you guys I do that already. I don't. So that's why it's something for me to do. And for my saint of the week, I don't got anybody. I as the host, I usually don't get in on this stuff, so I didn't really prep that much. Dare you? And also, my saint of the week is Greta. Greta's my saint. How about that? She's my saint of the week because she does so much good for us in that regard. So we'll go with her. But my cry room is going to be Nina Jakowitz. And you are like, who is that? She is the head of the brand new Homeland Security Disinformation's Governance Board that was formed this week. And she's a Harry Potter girl. So she's like Dumbledore's army and all this kind of nonsense. She's one of these
Big surprise there.
Right. That's why she was clamoring for this job. But she's going to be my nomination for the cry room. You may not hear it now, but you're going to hear her name down the line. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for News from the Pew. Thank you for hanging out with us, for myself, for Steve, for Fwaz, for John, and Ryan, who is knee-deep in cow poop. If you like what you heard... I just want to get out of the show at this point. If you like what we're doing, like, subscribe, and share this so more people can hear what we have to say. And please, will you vote in the poll? Like 4 people are voting in it. Can I get at least double digits this week? That would be fantastic. Anyway, we'll talk to you next week. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.